Hey folks, this is Matt once again, and welcome back to another review. And this is of the documentary, The Death of Superman Lives, What Happened. Great documentary, right off the bat. I want to say I love this one. I think it's one of the best documentaries I've seen in a long time. Now, for those who don't know, back in the uh, mid to late 90s, Kevin Smith was brought in to write a script for Superman. It was going to be Superman Reborn, but he then titled it Superman Lives, which was a storyline based on the death of Superman. He wrote a script. Nicolas Cage was brought in to star Superman. Tim Burton was brought in to direct. Then other writers like Wesley Strick and Dan Gilroy. And it was a script that had Brainiac, Luthor, Doomsday. It was packed with a lot of shit. And it's one of those things where it didn't get made. It was like 3 or so weeks before production began, and the studio said, no, we're not doing it. It's too much money, and well, other stuff as well. But this guy, John Schnipp, who wrote and directed it, he did a great job with this, I will say. This is a great documentary. This is how you do a documentary right, and this is how you do a release right. And I know this is picking on someone, but you know how you do it wrong? This is how you do it wrong. This is about all of the years of the definitive history of the Ninja Turtles, right? This is definitive. I've talked about this, complained about this before. About 70% of the history is missing from this definitive history. And this is a DVD that has no features, jack shit, and this is the definitive history of the Ninja Turtles. It's an hour and 38 minutes. I did that because that's how you do it wrong. That's why I did a big old rant on that documentary and that DVD. Because you have something like this, which is about one movie, a movie that never was made. And the documentary itself is about an hour and 45 minutes. So the documentary itself is longer than a documentary which is about the definitive history of the Turtles, which has a lot more info to cover. And this is longer. And on top of that, it's not a bare bones release. This has all of these features. So it's a lot. Again, you want to know why I complain about that documentary so much? Because you had Crystal Lake Memories documentary on Friday the 13th. You have Never Sleep Again documentary on Nightmare on Elm Street. And this is a documentary on a film that was never made. And it's longer, it's more in-depth. I have no complaints about this. This is in-depth. This is fascinating. This is interesting. That documentary is a fucking fluff piece because of a shitty Michael Bay produced films coming out. They wanted something. That's a piece of shit. This is not. And I know, well, you're not going to know. That's why. And look at these features. You have 2 commentary tracks. You have a 45-minute featurette, which is pretty much just more of the documentary that they didn't fit into the hour and 45 minutes. So it's like 45 minutes of extra stuff from the documentary. That's the featurette. You have deleted scenes, which is another 20-some minutes. You have an origin story, which talks about how the idea for this came about, a red carpet premiere, a filmmaker Q&A, which is about 40 minutes, Kevin Smith Q&A with the director of this, which is over an hour long. You have an afternoon with Kevin Smith, which is Kevin Smith telling his story for about 45 minutes. Grant Morrison interview, which is a guy who worked on stuff like All-Star Superman. He talks about stuff. Kevin Smith and Schnipp talk comics, which is going a little bit more in depth in the writing, among other stuff. Comic artists, writers, and fans talk Superman, self-explanatory. Extended interviews with Derek Freed, Colin Atwood, Lorenzo Di Bonaventura, Steve Johnson, Wesley Stritt, John Peters, Duprez, Sylvain Duprez in current cinema, resuscitation suit special effects footage, which is like 20 some minutes. So this is packed. I mean, I'm saying one's an hour long, 45 minutes, 20 minutes, another 40 some minutes. Like this is hours and hours and hours of stuff. And this was worth the money. Now, the only way you can get this is on their website, www.tdoslwh.com, which is the initials of this, The Death Superman Lives, What Happened. Now, when you go to their website, the top of the page, I'll put the link down below. The top of the page is options to buy it digitally, but if you scroll down, there's options to buy it physically. The DVD, the shipping is $10, which wasn't their decision, because the guy who releases, John Schnapp, he did this very grassroots, not through a big studio, which is probably why this is better than that piece of shit. But the way the people they deal with, the ship is $10. So the DVD, which has some of these features, not all of it, with shipping is $30, and with shipping with this is $40. Because it's 20 plus 10 shipping for the DVD, 30 plus 10 shipping for the Blu-ray. So yeah, it's $40. Seems pretty spendy, but you know what? I'm not mad about it. First off, they had really good customer service. I got a tracking number, which is not always the case when you get stuff. I mean, this is from a very small group of people, and the DA tracking number was very nice. When it was delayed, like for a few days, because they had to go to Comic-Con and stuff like that to promote this, they sent people who bought the Blu-ray or DVD, at least to me they did, a digital copy to watch. Like, here's a digital copy of the film to watch that you can download to watch for free in the meantime while you have to wait for this. That was nice of them. They didn't have to do that. Good customer service is what I'm saying. So, good customer service. The Blu-ray is packed. I mean, I'm not even finished with everything. Like, I will admit, I did not get to the 2 commentary tracks. I flipped through the 45-minute featurette, but I'm going to sit down to watch it. And the resuscitation suit special effects footage. But I did watch the other stuff, and I really like the other features, the Q&As, all the interviews. And the documentary itself, which I'll get to, is a very fascinating documentary on a movie that, before watching it, I would go, wow, that's kind of sounds like a silly movie. But after watching it, I would love to see it. I would love to see this movie having been made. Even nowadays, if you did on a animated film, like direct-to-video, like those animated movies, I would have been interested to see this, because it sounds really crazy, and it sounds a lot better than Superman Returns and Man of Steel. I'm sorry, this movie, when I got done watching it, this documentary, this Blu-ray is better than Superman Returns and the Man of Steel. Like, all these review blurbs, if I had a review blurb, if I was famous, Matt Roller, Rambo Rat for Life, much better, or kiss the shit out of Superman Returns and the Man of Steel. Superman Lives kiss the shit out of, or I probably, The Death of Superman, kiss the shit out of the Man of Steel and Superman Returns. But I don't know. I would never get. I'd never be famous enough to have a review blurb on here. But this is fast. I mean, they got a lot of people. They got Tim Burton, who's going to direct it. The writers, Kevin Smith, Dan Gilroy, Wesley Stritt. They got John Peters, Lorenzo Di Bonaventura, Colin Atwood, who worked on the costumes, Steve Johnson, who worked on the effects. They got a lot of people behind the scenes. They couldn't get Nicolas Cage, and they actually talked about that in some of the features. that they tried, and there was some back and forth. Like Nick Cage's manager saw this and loved it, but ultimately Nick Cage didn't want to do it. I think because there was a lot of those memes, a lot of those things online about like the picture with him that looks like he's stoned, but it was that picture was taken. He was in mid blink. That's why that weird pictures. He was in mid blink and was taken out of context. But you see that footage on this documentary, and it doesn't look as bad as the pictures make it sound like. Or that resuscitation suit with all the electricity. You find out that that was actually going to be in the film for 2 minutes at most, and it was going to be Superman in a vat. It looks cool from the drawings, and where after his death he's again being resuscitated. Again, it's like 1 or 2 minutes long, and that suit would have been in there for a little bit. To be honest, I never hated the suit. I always thought it looked kind of cool, but that's just me. I mean, from the beginning, a lot of fascinating info. Like Bryan Singer, when he was doing Superman Returns, he would have his assistant pull out a picture of Nicolas Cage, that one with that shitty picture that we find out was Cage blinking. He was in mid-blink. And whenever they were giving him shit in Superman Returns and the making of, he would pull that picture and goes, "You guys were going to make this." And honestly, this seems like it would have been better than Superman Returns. Crazier, different. Just because it's different doesn't mean it's good, but there's a lot of movies that are different that are good and bad as well. But yeah, Kevin Smith talking about how he read the old script and how there's the shitty ideas, like Clark Kent going to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist goes, "No, you're not Superman." Like, just really shitty business. About how Kevin Smith will go, "Hey, why don't you get these guys who wrote the comics?" And the studio at the time actually said, "But those guys are comic book guys." Kevin Smith, who came in, of course, because Chasing Amy script was going around. A lot of people liked it. They offered him Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. He said no. Another one, The Architects of Fear. He's like, nah. I think the script's just fine. You don't need me for that. And Superman, when he got it, it was called Superman Reborn. He hated that title. He made fun of the title in a funny way. So he called it Superman Lives, and he called it Superman Lives because of the title Fletch Lives, which I didn't realize that's where he got it from, was from Fletch Lives. Meeting John Peters, the 3 things he was told by John Peters: no flying, no suit, fight a giant spider. John Peters, like, I still remember an evening with Kevin Smith and that crazy story that Kevin Smith said about John Peters. John Peters, when you listen and watch his interviews in this, you believe Kevin Smith was telling the truth. Because even though John Peters kind of denies the no flying, you can tell that he's crazy. John Peters. I'm going to say right off the bat. Because so many times, John Peters doesn't say that he missed, he said from the streets, but throughout the interview, he keeps saying, "Oh, but he's from the streets." So he's crazy. John Peters' producer was putting people in a headlock to motivate them, and he said that for Batman 1989, when Michael Keaton said, "I'm Batman," he says that originally it was, "I'm Batman, motherfucker." And it's funny, in the Q&A, Kevin Smith said that, "I think he's lying. I don't think there was ever a time that he was going to be Batman, motherfucker." Because the Q&A is when Kevin Smith saw the film, he's like, "I think that one part, I think John Peters is lying." Or something to that effect. But a lot of fascinating info about it. About how John Peters wanted this big spider, the Thanagarian snare beast. And how it was this big Black Widow type of thing. And then these face hugger mini spiders were going to come out to try to stop Superman. And how in Kevin Smith's script there was cameos of the Legion of Doom and Black Manta, Cyborg Superman, Eradicator, a Batman cameo, tons of stuff. The story that he was told by John Pierce to put in polar bears, that Brainiac fucks one up. And you actually see a little bit of that anime. They did that for this, which I thought was fun, when they did those little segments. Like, sometimes they animate some of the scenes. I wish I could have seen more of that animated stuff, but they see a little bit of it. Just certain nuggets of information, like Sylvain Dupree talked about how he entered as a completely different take. He joined the crew and entered hell, as he said it. I would like a little bit more from him on that, what he meant by entered hell, but I think it's, you get certain nuggets of it. For example, the John Pierce will bring in kids, or his kids, to where people are drawing, and just let the kids go, oh, that's good, that sucks, that's good, that sucks, for toys, which kind of pissed off the, the artist, because they're making something for Tim Burton, but then they gotta deal with someone like John Peters. About how Burton and Peters didn't really get along. The whole thing where, people were so pissed off with Michael Keaton as Batman, and then when they saw it, they enjoyed it. And about the controversy that, oh, Nicolas Cage is Superman. Ideas for casting, they talked about Lois Lane, how John Pierce really wanted Sandra Bullock. That was his main choice, but Sandra Bullock said no. So there are other choices like Courtney Cox and so on. Chris Rock was hired as Jimmy Olsen. Christopher Walken was going to be Brainiac, and Kevin Spacey was going to be Lex Luthor. Of course, he became Lex Luthor in Superman Returns, which I actually like Kevin Spacey as Luthor. And there was a moment where Brainiac and Luthor were going to merge, and it was like the thing with two heads, and the regeneration suit, and there was this artificial robot type of thing with Superman called K. Like, when he was a kid, a baby, K was like a teddy bear companion who could morph and change. And when Superman died, he would actually go over Superman as a temporary suit. And you see Tim Burton and Nick Cage testing the suit and the different suits. Even when him as Clark Kent with his weird jacket and maybe like a Mickey Mouse t-shirt. And it sounds stupid, but Nick Cage says something interesting where he goes, no one ever expect this with Superman. Like, if someone saw me like this, no one would ever expect that guy to be Superman. And about, like, he's a guy who dressed 10 years too late, and I don't know, one thing I kind of wish is, I wanted to see this animated form. Would have been nice to hear Nick Cage's words, but at the end he did an audio bit, I think from NTV Geek, when I heard in the features. Let him talk a little bit about the project, so at least there's something from an older. And then, like, there's a little segment of him talking about from Movie Phone. Like, they got a lot of stuff in this. I would have liked to have seen the Tim Burton Nick Cage testing from beginning to the end as a special feature. That would have been, I think, pretty cool. Just see that. You see a lot of that footage with it, but just to see it uncut from beginning to the end as a feature, I think that would have been cool. But you do see quite a bit of that, which is nice. A lot of artwork, the look of Krypton, the look of Doomsday, different choices of Doomsday, big, small, well, not really small, but all big, but just different looks. It's hard to go into every detail. That's why you should check it out. Like, there was one where there was a bunch of faces. It looked like something out of John Carver's The Thing, like the end of The Thing, where you have these faces, and they're imagining in a fight, like, one part will look like Lois Lane or other people that you knew and loved and fuck with them. Or even in the features, that Lex Luthor would be talking to Superman while he's fighting Doomsday, kind of like Gene Hackman would secretly talk to Superman, and that the noise level that no one but Superman could hear. There's the skull ship. I guess that Brainiac was in. Like, literally looks like a skull. This thing here. And how there'd be the zoo, Brainiac's monsters, like this whole zoo of creatures that people like Steve Jobs and stuff would work on. Wesley Strick said something funny, who's one of the writers, saying about how Tim Burton was complaining that Joel Schumacher fucked up not only his franchise with the later Batman films, but also fucked up his Superman. Because Warner Brothers, Batman and Robin did not do as well as they wanted. And that hurt this movie. So I think Tim Burton's not a fan of Joel Schumacher. And that the Warner's brass told Tim to fire Wesley Strick. So they got another guy. And then even one of the features, you remember hearing that, oh, it's too dark. And Wesley Strick even goes, well, if they read the script, then they realized it wasn't too dark. But yet nowadays, they're like, we want to make a darker Superman. And he even jokes, yeah, like, I guess our too dark Superman wouldn't work. I mean, the studios they can't even make up their minds. And it's true. And looking through this would not have been that dark of a Superman. Look at this Superman. This Superman's ready to kill himself in Man of Steel Boner 2. He's ready to fucking kill himself in gasoline or something. But, I don't know. I mean, it looked so dark you guys squid through the fucking movie. But that's just my opinion. But just a lot of info. Artwork about this big battle that's going to happen in the subway. And the reasons why it did not happen. For example, they had a slew of box office flops. This was a bad time in Warner Brothers. You had films like Batman and Robin did not do that well as they wanted. 187 with Sam Jackson, Steel with Shaquille O'Neal, The Postman, Fire Down Below with Steven Seagal, Mad City with Dustin Hoffman and John Travolta, Sphere with Dustin Hoffman, Tarzan, I think the one with Casper Van Dien. They had a lot of films, some $20 million, some 50, 80, $100 million. They just had a string of flops. Flop, 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 flop. And someone even said it best, they're terrified of originality. So they didn't want to roll the dice. And the funds to this, when they said no, went to Wild Wild West, which John Peters produced, and had a giant spider in the third act. And yeah, Wild Wild West. I've never hated Wild Wild West, but I don't love it either. I mean, I'll be honest, Wild Wild West is a time waster for me. I'd be lying, but it's nowhere near for me Men in Black or Independence Day or Enemy of the State or I, Robot or Bad Boys 1 and 2 or such with Will Smith. It's definitely one of his weakest movies. And looking back, I would have preferred to see this get made than Wild Wild West. Trying to think. Just a lot of info on the making of the film. And even some of the features, like Kevin Smith, he wanted, in a way, he wanted to do with his script what they did today. I think with all that stuff in it. But they wanted to make it more mainstream, more for the mainstream. And have less of the comic book in the film, more for the mainstream people who didn't even know about comics. I didn't go through all the details. There's a lot of details in this movie. It's a lot of great artwork and some behind-the-scenes tests, even some early ILM flying tests, which when you watch, kind of looks like what they would later do in Man of Steel. But he's like, I did like 3-5 seconds. And these reviews, like Kevin Smith, if you're a superhero or a comic book or movie fan, it's a must-see. It's a nerd dream come true. Or Harry Knowles, one of those documentaries that no fan should go without seeing. 10 out of 10. A compelling revelatory exploration of one of modern cinema's biggest could-have-beens. Fun to watch, bursts with fascinating inside lore. The best documentary I've ever seen about superheroes in the comic book film genre. I mean, I agree with a lot of these reviews. This is a fantastic documentary. I can't recommend it enough. This is where I am glad that I spent my money to support these people. I did. I'm glad I did. This is where I'll put my money at. There's a lot of movies that I see that I'll admit I did not put my money into. I will admit that. Because they don't deserve it, and they were pieces of shit. There's documentaries, like that Ninja Turtles one, that didn't deserve the money. Was disappointing as fuck. Why do I say it was disappointing? Because you look at something like this. I recommend this to anybody and everybody. I mean, this was fascinating. It was interesting. It was in-depth. And I think it's worth your time. And I'll try to think of anything else I want to say before I end this. Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was a fantastic documentary. I hope to see more of this kind of stuff. I know there's that one on Fantastic Four, Roger Corman. I don't know whatever happened to that. Which was made, but was just never released officially. But I hope there's more. I mean, I would love to see something like this, even on a smaller scale, on Isobar. That Sylvester Stallone, Kim Basinger, Roland Emmerich directed film, The Creature on a Train, stuff by Rick Baker. I would love to see that. Or Crusade, that Arnold Schwarzenegger and Paul Verhoeven. Arnold Schwarzenegger always wanted to do. Or a lot of the other movies that were never done. I think there's one on the Dune. I can't say the guy's name. Jodorowsky. I probably said that name wrong. His version of Dune, which sounds interesting. I have to give that a look. But yeah, The Death of Superman Lives. What happened? I'll just say The Death of Superman Lives was great. It's a great job. John Schnepp, give all kudos to the guy. Him and his girlfriend, which he got engaged with. I'd give her, I'd give her a golf club. Because this deserves my money. This deserves praise. This deserves a thumbs up. Not bullshit documentaries like Turtle Power. Again, that's why. This is a movie that was never made. And with all the features, they went above and beyond. And when you put that effort, then I give you praise. I give you a pass. More than a pass. You get a grade A for awesome. Not a grade F on the F scale of fuck. Like some stuff. There's just an A+. I'm praising to high heaven because it deserves it. I have nothing bad to say about this. I mean, yeah, I would love to have seen that Nicolas Cage, Tim Burton stuff from beginning to end uncut on a feature. Yeah, if they tried to do Nick Cage, he said no. But at least I know they tried. They even admit they tried to do Nick Cage. That one, there's people they didn't even bother to try on that Turtle Power. I know because I talked to the people behind it. They didn't bother to try. So, anyway, I know I'm being a stickler on that, but this is why, this is the stuff, this is worth it. Anyway, thanks for watching, take care, and we will see you later. Bye-bye.